All right, another episode of the Gray Area Podcast here from Brighton, Michigan at the Michigan Institute of Athletics. Right before we get into it, I want to shout out VetLife. VetLife is a 501c3 nonprofit company. It's a company of veterans for veterans. Every veteran faces difficulty when they transition from active duty back to civilian life, and VetLife is there to ease that transition. If you want to reach out to VetLife, you can do so through Instagram or Facebook, or check out their website at vetlifetoday.org. So without further ado, I want to introduce Nick Antonucci. Second time to have you here in the studio,
right.
But the first podcast that we're going to get produced.
Yes.
We had some technical errors last time. I'm super excited about this one. I know some of the highlights of your story. I know, you're a veteran. You have many different hats that you wear, and I don't want to steal any of your thunder. This is how we start all my episodes. I don't want to first talk about the man that you are today. Let's take your story all the way back. Where was Nick born and raised? What were you like as a young kid? What were the things that were very formative to you in your early years? Like, what really shaped you as a man?
Sure.
And then let's start to build up to the story we have today.
Absolutely. So I grew up in Dearborn Heights. I always thought it was downriver because that's what I called it, So grew up in Dearborn Heights, older brother, younger sister, sub 1,000 square foot house kind of deal. Parents divorced when I was young. It was just us three, kind of that latchkey generation of we got to figure it out. Mom's working a lot. So I was a very athletic kid. I didn't put my whole thing was, I'm going to be a professional athlete one day. So I don't really need to hit the books all that much,
That was such a common dream in like the 90s, early 2000s. We all thought, for sure, I'm just going to grow up and be a professional sports player. You guys do your jobs.
Absolutely.
We're just going to be sports players.
Yeah. 'Cause, I'm 41? That dream's not dead. I don't know. I'll figure out something I could be good at.
If you're an agent and you're searching.
So, that was the thing. We get up and it was just sports. Anything I could play with a ball. Hockey, which is kind of funny now, but hockey was the one sport I never played. It was way too much, right? All the ice time, all the equipment, had buddies that played. But I never did that. Grew up, went to grade school at St. Robert's in Redford, which is no longer there. Then went to Catholic Central. I was in high school there.
Man, that's a special school in this area, by the way. Their athletics program, and I don't know if it was the same back when you were coming up.
Yeah.
But, man, they're the top dogs. They're top tier. If you're a part of Catholic Central, you're a beast.
Absolutely. No, and it was a great school, especially for sports. So played football and baseball, wrestled, and it was fantastic. So the career's kind of getting better. Captain of the team. I'm really working on this, trying to, this whole athlete. My goal was to maybe just get into college. It's not like my parents can pay for this. So that was kind of the dream, like, get in.
What was your main sport? What was the one you really thought you had a shot with?
I think I liked football the best. I was better at baseball than I was football. But I loved hitting people, and I loved playing defense. Offense wasn't even that exciting. I didn't want to score a touchdown. I just want to lay people out. I loved it. It was great.
If only mixed martial arts would have been a little bit bigger when you were coming up. You're a big guy. You're super athletic. You wanted to hit people on the field. I'd have been like, follow me right this way, Nick. I got a path for you.
It'd have been amazing. That'd have been fantastic, although I hate getting punched. So I don't know how great it'd be at that. So September 97 rolls around, get into a car accident. And I had a nosebleed in school. It wouldn't stop bleeding. So they pull me out. Go to the doctors, they cauterize this, and I leave. From what I'm told, I was driving home to meet, I think, my mom there. I was taking the rest of the day off. She was stopping getting lunch, and I woke up in the hospital, and just kind of like, kind of shocked, like, oh man, what happened? How did I get here? And my mom and dad are there, and I was like, what happened? How did I get here? And my mom was irritated, which I thought was kind of shocking, right? Kids in the hospital. I'm like, what is going on? Like, I was in a car accident, but, she was irritated. Come to find out she's scared. So my dad's sitting there, and she kind of walked out of the room. I'm like, what's going on? He goes, you've been asking that question every 3 minutes for hours. I go, oh, this makes total sense now. But to me, I woke up, although I'd been awake the whole time. So I had a closed head injury. had to kind of teach myself how to read almost, so I could read, the apple is red. And I'd be like, what'd you say? I got nothing.
You almost had to start over blank slate with a lot
Yeah.
of things. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. So, and it was tough, right? Kind of going through this, but I'm like, hey, I want to keep playing sports and everything else. Talk to the doctors. I'm like, hey, can I play football? They're like, you take another shot and it could be over. I was like, well, that's worth it. So I'm going to continue to play. Well, I missed too much school at Catholic Central. They're like, you got to go. I was like, okay. So I went to Crestwood in Dearborn Heights and played football for them. And, it was all city, all conference or something. And they do an article in the newspaper. And it's, it just kind of came up. Like, oh, I transferred from CC because I was in this car accident and everything else.
So you didn't lose any like motor skills or anything like that, but
No.
it was like a mind wipe. Like you had lost
100%.
a lot in here.
Yeah. From like 16 to 18, even now, there's just like some bits and pieces, but essentially I lost those 2 years.
That's wild. And over
Yeah.
time, every once in a while, like something new comes back up, or did that stop happening?
No, every once in a while something will pop into my head. This kind of a crazy story, and it might take some, a lot of details for me to kind of like, oh, that's right, and then I kind of can pick up on it.
Did that lead to like any depression or anything that was devastating? Because those are moments of your life that you value,
Yeah.
especially if you lost them, right? A lot of times we don't value things enough until we lose them.
Right.
And now all of a sudden you got this blank period from an incident that happened that, in the most formative years of your life, like right as you're ending high school and you're kind of like ending the tutorial mode on life and you're about to get started. You're an athlete. You got all these things going. You're going to CC. It's a powerhouse school.
Yeah.
Now that gets taken from you. This chunk of your life gets taken from you. Did that lead to like a really dark place, or were you just it sounds like the way you're telling the story is you were just kind of focused on the next thing. You didn't really
Yeah, I never really thought too much about it all. It went from, that situation to, being in the military and all these other things that have happened where you just kind of keep your head down, you keep going.
There was no poor me, there was no why me, there was no feel sorry for me. It was like,
No.
This happened to me and it's a part of my story, but man, I'm going to keep going from this part.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that I pick up on all this is I don't care if it's a kid, you, me, Josh, whoever, everybody out there is going through something or has been through something. A lot of people think they're alone and it's never happened to them, but pull anybody off the street and they'll start talking and they're gonna have stories maybe not like mine but similar. So knowing that everybody's gone through something kind of makes it a little bit easier.
So what made you choose the military? Do you come from a military family, or like what made you pull the trigger on that direction?
So this is funny. I definitely believe in transparency, a little bit self-awareness, and I'm not gonna tell you I was this huge patriot growing up. My grandfather was in the military, World War II, D-Day. I think he was D4, D6, something like that. But he was a medic, Italian guy. Didn't get a gun. My dad was drafted into the Vietnam era. He never went. He was in Germany as a prison guard. My uncle was a truck driver. He did go. Another uncle's grenadier. He did go, but we never talked about it. It wasn't like a taboo subject. We were just kind of, yeah.
It was just right below the surface. Yeah, we served time, we did this thing, but it wasn't like a staple of the family unit.
Not
it wasn't
yeah.
like, hey, we, give ourselves to the military. This is our quest. This is
Right.
the path that you should take. It was kind of like, yeah, your grandfather served, your uncle served, your father served. Do you want to serve?
Right.
What made that decision?
So one of my best friends is, I talked to him. He's like, I'm going to the Marines. I'm like, why are you going to the Marines? That's like the hardest one. Pick something easier.
Hit the Coast Guard,
Yeah,
man. You can still serve.
That's 100% what I said. I'm like, dude, you're getting paid the same. Pick something a little easier. He goes, well, if I'll go to the Army if you come with me. And I was like, I got nothing going on right now. Any of the sports things kind of dried up after this article came out about me and the closed head injuries, and had scouts to a couple games where I got hurt and twisted up my knee, and so it was kind of shot after that. I was like, I got nothing going on. I want a six-pack. Let's go. That was it. That was that was my decision.
I've seen Top Gun. Let's go.
Right.
Like, that's going to be me.
Exactly. So I come home, I tell my parents, I'm like, oh, I signed up for the Army, by the way. Like, there was no talking about it. There was no whatever. And I'm talking to my dad, and he's like, you did? I was like, yeah. He's like, what job did you pick? I'm like, oh, military police. He's like, I was military police too. Like, that's when I found out,
That's
what
wild.
he was doing as well. So that was a little crazy. And then
You didn't really have open lines of communication with your family when you were younger? You guys it wasn't like a story time family or a lot of life lesson family?
No.
Or what was the family unit like growing up? Was dad always working and mom just kind of took care of the home, so everybody kind of went about their own thing? Or kind of paint that picture for me.
Yeah, so
I can't believe that, you joined the military and that's the first time you're hearing about what your father had done.
right. And we were a close family. It was just one of these where we didn't really, my parents got divorced in 84. So I'm 4 years old, so I don't remember any of that. And we lived with our mom, and she wasn't making a lot of money at all, working as a floral designer. So she's trying to take care of these 3 kids. From there, she moved. She was working at a car dealership for a really long time. And, I think it's Mondays and Thursdays where they're working until 8, 9 o'clock at night. So me, my brother, my sister, we get out of school, come home, and it's us. And we're essentially taking care of ourselves. My sister was in 1st grade. I'm in 3rd. My brother's in 8th grade. So we just kind of took care of ourselves for a really long time.
So you learned a ton of independence during those periods.
A ton. So I never felt like when the Army stuff came up, it wasn't like, hey, let's talk, let's have life lessons. More like, I'm old enough to make my own decisions. This is what I chose to do.
It makes so much more sense now. At that point, you already feel like a young man that can make his own decisions. You don't need if you have the overreaching parents or the parents that always
Right.
are putting bubble wrap around you, making any major life decision becomes a super difficult thing because you haven't learned to trust yourself, right?
Right.
Like, you kind of seek their guidance all the time. You were used to being like, hey, I got to call my own shots sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm going to the military. This is what I'm going to do.
Absolutely. And then you everything has consequences. And we learned that really early too. I spent a lot of time in the hospital, broken bones and all sorts of injuries where if you do this and this is your decision, and then anything bad that comes in or negative that comes out of that, that's yours as well. So I figured that out pretty early.
It's a great way to learn, but there's definitely a lot that, you run into, like you said, broken bones, injuries, things like that, which as parents we try to keep our kids from doing. But
100%.
some of the best lessons in your life come from messing up, making a mistake.
And being a parent too, it's tough because you want them to learn from your mistakes. And I got a 6-year-old daughter, will be 7 here soon, where she's just like I was, where she has to make her own mistakes, and it's the worst. It's so infuriating. You do want to protect them, and you don't want her to do dumb
Now
stuff
it's
like
almost
that.
like for the first time you can see it from the lens that so many parents carry forever.
Yeah.
Where because we've heard these things for generations,
Yep.
but for some reason your consciousness almost has to live the experience it yourself
Yeah.
to pull the proper lessons. Otherwise, the words just don't have weight. She
True.
hears your words,
Right.
but she has to actually experience why she shouldn't do that.
Exactly.
And then we're sitting there as parents like, no, I tried to tell you.
Right.
She's like, yeah, but those were just words. That
Right.
wasn't an actual experience.
Absolutely.
You're right. That was terrible.
100%. I'm like, I warned you. I told you this was going to happen, and then it happened. And then, next day it happens again. I'm like, okay, you just got to figure this out, figure this out on
100%.
your own. So I decide to go. They're like, what do you want to do? Looking back now, I wish I would have picked something that I would have liked to do, for a career. And he said, all right, military police, you just drive around and give tickets. I'm like, that sounds amazing. Let's do that. Sounds super easy. That's not what we did. So did basic training at Leonard Wood in Missouri. It's a one-stop unit training, so it's 17 weeks. It's 17 weeks of basic training is what it is. Find out I'm getting stationed in Fort Drum, New York. Awesome. New York City. This is great. That's not where that is either. It's 20 minutes south of Canada. I'm an hour north of Syracuse. I'm in a farm.
Yeah, I mean, upstate New York, for the people that don't know, because I grew up in Philadelphia, it's nothing. It's barren. It's rural. It's not. When you think of New York, you only picture the skyline and all the hustle and bustle of the cities.
Absolutely.
No, upstate New York is the country.
Yeah, 100%. So, I was like, oh, that's a bummer. They're like, don't worry, don't bother unpacking anyways. What does that mean? It was one of the most highly deployable units in the military. Okay, great. So I get there. Did a couple training exercises real fast with like the infantry because they needed, some private to go out there and drive a vehicle around for them. It wasn't a big deal. From there, went to JRTC. It's a Joint Readiness Training Center. It's like playing war down in Louisiana in Fort Polk. So I go through all these things. Well, we got orders to go to Kosovo. And I was like, cool. I want to do something before I get out because I only signed up for 2 years. And they're like, you can't go. I was like, yeah, why? Well, you don't have enough time left. Long training, you take some time off after. You got all this stuff. I'm like, oh, man. So I'm a year in, re-enlisted for 2 more years to make it 3 so I can go to Kosovo.
I feel like that happens very common in the story. They almost have like the carrot on the stick. Like,
Yeah.
if you were to sign up a little longer, you're going to go and do these things, and all your
100%.
training's not for nothing. I've heard that story many times.
It's always what it is. So then Kosovo, the orders got canceled. I would say like 3 days after I re-enlisted. And I'm just like, yeah, that sounds about right. This is perfect. So those got canceled, but we got orders to go to Egypt instead. Great. Even better. Let's go to Egypt. Well, when I was there, September 11th happened. And then everything hit the fan. Finished up our tour, then got stop-lossed, which is, hey, I know you signed a contract, but you can't get out. So when I got back from Egypt, I had to get a new ID card because mine's going to expire. And it said 2062 was the expiration date. I was like, hey, you guys messed up. Just letting you know. And she just laughed. She's like, nope, that's right. I was like, that's... She goes, we can keep you until then. I was like, okay, great. That's 82-year-old, dude.
My entire life is in service, basically, at this
Right.
point.
So that's what they did. So I get back. We don't know when the stop loss is going to lift. So I was kind of not really doing my own thing, but I'd work on the road a little bit. I'd attach to a different platoon. I'd work the armory, just kind of hanging out. And then another platoon was going to go to Afghanistan. I was like, let's go. I want to go. They're like, do you really? I'm like, yeah, I'm just sitting around here doing nothing. I want to go. They're like, okay, Didn't really think much of it. They were leaving maybe in a month or two. And I was getting getting a tattoo. And Callie came in like, we got to go. It's like, what are we doing? Like, you're going. We're leaving for Afghanistan. 20-some years later, still haven't got the tattoo finished. But
That's part of the story at this point. You can't change
I know,
it,
it's
man.
ridiculous. So, yeah, and then left. And then I would say about a week before that tour was done, they lifted the stop loss, and they sent me home. Like, hey, can I wait 6 days? They're like, no, you got to go now. So then jumped all around the world trying to get back to New York. And I get there, and they're like, it was like a week before I got out. Where before, I needed 6 months to get out, But now it's like, you got to leave. So then got out of the military, had still no idea what I wanted to do. Didn't want to be a cop. Was working for an uncle who owned a construction company. I was building basements. And by this time, my brother, I think he was thinking about moving out to L.A. And he left. And then the girl I was dating got a job offer out in California. And she's like, let's go. If you want to go. I'm like, yeah, I'm building basements. I'd much rather live in Huntington Beach. Like, let me get out of here. So got out there, was working on some movies, commercials, just doing production assistant, PA work. If anybody doesn't know what PA, like a PA job, it's a busboy for the movie industry. That's essentially what you do. So it wasn't very glamorous at all. Did that for a little bit. Everything was going okay. And I'm laying in bed one night and got a cramp in my calf. And I reach back there and I'm punching it it's all locked up. Find that, this muscle that is like a rock, and start, massage therapists, we can't break this up. Went to somebody else. They're like, I don't think this is a muscle. Got sent to another guy, this doctor, and it was an orthopedic surgeon. He's like, it's a tumor, but don't worry. Exact words, don't worry. It's not like it's cancer. Cool. Makes me feel better, right?
Yeah, I mean, the C word is what you always want to avoid. So a benign tumor is way better than...
Absolutely. Well, for some reason, they thought I was a doctor. So the guy came in on his day off thinking I was he's like, oh, a doctor. I was like, nope, I have no idea what you're talking about. He's like, oh, that's weird. Something lost in translation. He sends me down for an ultrasound, and if you've ever had one done and you're about to not find something positive, they know what they're looking at. Technically, they can't tell you, but they know. And I'm just looking at them, and I could tell on their face something was wrong. So it's a tumor, do the whole deal. Went to Cedars-Sinai. They're like 70% of the time when the tumor looks like this, it's benign. Like, great. They go, the surgery is going to be a couple hours. If it's not, we're going to cut you up, take out the tumor, sew you back up, you're done. If it is cancer, we immediately sew you back up. We got to go about this a different way. I go, okay, cool. So I go under, let's say it's 6 o'clock. I go under, I leave the room, I come back, I wake up thinking like, okay, what's going on? Hopefully all is well. And I was alone. And the girl I was dating walked in, her eyes got real big. And I'm like, how long have I been gone? She's like, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I was like, oh no. Because I knew at that point then it was cancer.
Yeah, exactly.
So 2 weeks later, they go back in, took the whole muscle out. And then shortly after that started radiation and chemo from April to November 2008. And then, but all these little things start kind of, paving the way for things in the future and how things get a little crazy, and some of that, the PTSD and some of those other issues start kind of creeping up. They're all molding together. Because with cancer, that's the worst. Cancer's awful, right? It's probably worse for everybody else. But the bad thing, the chemo's not great. The radiation, completely painless until it just kind of burns all the skin off. So that wasn't as bad. It's like, for me, it was like having the flu. And I'd have to wear it for like 24 hours at like a backpack into a port of my chest for 24 hours at a time for 2 weeks. So that was kind of brutal. But it's anxiety and the mental health of what it does. That's the brutal part. That's what messes you up. And it can for a long time. They gave me they said you got a 50% chance of living over the next 2 years. So I had a 2-year, yeah.
Imagine the paranoia that comes with it. You lived
100%.
it for 2 years. Every probably little twing or twitch or any feeling, anything. And even when you're not feeling things, your brain is probably asking those questions, because very few people stare at their own mortality or their own end on a regular basis and think like, could this be it?
Right.
Could Nick Antonucci's story end at 25?
Right. And then every test, every follow-up,
you're just horrified waiting for those results.
Absolutely anxious. I remember at one point I had found a lump like in my neck, lymph node kind of deal, and I'm like, it's back.
Cancer. Got it.
100%, it's back. And I remember going to the doctor, and he's checking me out, and he goes, he's like, dude, that's a saliva gland. I was like, you sure? He's like, you want me to cut you open? And he's like, that's a saliva. Immediate tears. Not even of just like happiness, but it was more like
relief.
Absolute relief. And that was kind of messed up stuff. So
how did you get through the mental torment of those periods? Like, what kept you pushing forward and not having the whole world collapse? Because it seems like no matter what I do is pointless, and it doesn't matter. I'm going to die.
Yeah.
How did you get through that period?
It was really tough. I was living with my brother at the time, which was awesome. But going through it out in California, all my family's here in Michigan. And I kept him in the dark on a lot of stuff. I never told him how serious it was. I told him, it's just one of those things. It's fine. It's treatable. But I played everything off because I don't want to worry them. So kind of taking that burden on and making sure that, everybody else is kind of dealing with this okay. But being with him helped immensely. And my biggest thing is I needed an end date. So, okay, if I'm starting chemo on this date, if everything comes out fine, when does this end? And the first doctor I was going to, who literally wrote the book on the type of cancer I had called liposarcoma, super rare. Like, oh, he wrote the book. No, literally his name's on the book. But no bedside manner. Zero. I'm like, I'm having a lot of anxiety issues. Told me to do yoga. I was like, that's not my thing. Then I was like, I can't handle the guy anymore. Found another guy, Googled him, just Googled doctors in my area, oncologists in my area, and I picked a guy who looked exactly like Doogie Howser, and that's why I picked him. Didn't read anything, didn't look up his credentials.
This dude's going to be the guy.
I was like, he's awesome. This guy looks great. So when talking to him, he was awesome. He was very honest about it. He goes, listen, the doctor you were seeing is the best in the world. You sure you don't want to keep going to this guy? I'm like, nope, can't do it. So it was easy. He called the doctor, explained the situation, and the original doctor prescribed what he, should be doing for me, and that's what he did. So then everything, turned out all right.
One question I have for you, because I'm trying to put myself into those shoes and how devastating that is how in the world, even like you say, like, oh, hey, I got to give myself an end date. Yeah, that might be like a certain treatment or a certain period, but how did your brain get off of the idea of like, once you randomly find cancer in your body, how are you not in this constant state of like, something's going to happen again, something's going to happen again? Or were you able to just say, hey, I made it through it, and you could close that chapter? Because I almost picture someone that, like, it struck you at random.
Yeah.
Why couldn't it hit you at random again? It could almost terrorize the mind for the rest of your life.
And it does.
So, like, how do you get past that? Or what have you done? What things have you learned in your life that can keep you dialed in and focused and moving forward and not allowing basically like a health anxiety that could live in the brain to consume you?
Yeah, it's you need to stay busy. To say that it doesn't affect me is a joke. Like, absolutely still does. It's not as bad. It was a point where, for 10 years, I couldn't watch TV. Like Breaking Bad, for example, I've never seen it. And I haven't seen it because I think the first episode, like, he's got cancer. Like, nope, not watching it. So I couldn't even watch the commercials because all these feelings keep flooding back. And
so you had to make a conscious effort to avoid the things that could almost put you back into a downward spiral or
100%.
Not produce a healthy Nick.
Yeah, and to this day, it's any commercial, anything I see, I'm just like, oh, okay, or turn the channel. Things that can spark whatever. The news, for example. I don't watch the news. I haven't watched the news in, God, I don't know, 20-some years.
Same.
It's absolutely. So people are like, oh, did you hear about? I'm like, nope.
Fear, chaos, worry, panic.
Exactly. So everything with the military, then the cancer, the car accident, like all those feelings keep flooding back. But trying to put that in the back of your mind and I almost treat it sometimes like it never happened. Because if I keep focusing on it, then my whole life's going to be about it. And the worry's going to be there, and the anxiety, which is, like we were talking about, the worst part, is always going to be there. So trying to stay distracted, trying to be as happy as possible, as much as you can.
One thing, at least for me, that the darkness or the very dark periods of my life did for me is it does give you the ability to kind of have a little bit of this like I'm going to go conquer this world now. Like if I still get more time here, if I still am surviving after this, and this,
right,
man, I'm going to make this thing worthwhile. I am not just going to sit in a cubicle until the day I find out it is my last day.
Right.
If I've been given more time. That happened for me, and it made a tremendous impact on my life. And knowing what you do now, and only a portion of your story that we're getting to, do you think that happened to you as well? Like once you live through enough darkness and difficult time, you kind of, in a weird way, you get empowered. You're like, if I've beat cancer, if I've done this, if I got through a closed head injury, what can I do? There
is a lot of that. There's a lot of, but there's a lot of fear leading up to it. But at a certain point, like, the anxiety was bad enough to where I thought I was having heart attacks. A lot of times going to the ER, like, this is it. I can feel it. They're like, you're just having a nasty panic attack.
And you're thinking, no way. As a man, you're like, stop it. That's not what's happening.
Not possible.
Run the tests.
I'm definitely dying right now. So we would, excuse me, we would, kind of go through this stuff, and it'd be terrifying. But then you get to a point where I'm like, screw it. Like when I went through chemo, I was 336 pounds at my heaviest when I had gotten done.
I had pictured Nick from childhood to now as this athletic specimen that you are. No. I didn't see the gap in that period.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of military guys or ex-athletes tell you the same thing. You have this regiment for so long, you can eat whatever you want.
Yeah, you just go wild after. You're like, I've kept myself way too strict for too long. I'm going to enjoy life. I'm going to eat the burgers.
100%. But I hated running for all 4 years. I hate it. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I was miserable. So when it was over, I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. And you start to balloon and, up and down, up and down. So I gained a ton of weight. But my first thought was like, sweet, I'm gonna lose some weight here. That's cool. You know, I'm trying to look at a silver lining of chemo. The steroids just put so much weight on. And it was like, so when it was over, I'm trying to get healthy again, trying to lose weight. When you're going through it, they suggest like not changing your diet. Don't take a bunch of vitamins. Don't start eating healthy because vitamins don't know the difference between a cancer cell and a regular cell. So it can actually help grow them. So I didn't want to do that. So I was intentionally eating trash.
You said grow off this shit.
Right. So I remember I'm sitting there and I'm having a panic attack. And I'm like, you know what? If it's a heart attack, fine. I don't care. And I'm just going to go. And, whether it was a treadmill, elliptical, whatever I was doing, did a whole bunch of cardio and just kind of went through it and realized, okay, well, you're okay. So let's continue this again. But getting to that point, there's a lot of fears. There's a lot of that darkness where you think something terrible is going to happen. And then you just kind of, fight or flight, really. And that's with everything. I mean, that anxiety, that doesn't go away. You just got to figure out ways to treat it, talk to people, let them hear your story. And then it just kind of loses its...
I tell people the exact same thing, Nick. So many kids that I work with, especially from the court system, or even young fighters that are struggling with a lot of things, fear, anxiety, stress, it never goes away.
No.
The only thing you can do is you can become stronger.
Yeah.
You can become more resilient. You can learn to manage it more and handle it more, but it doesn't go away.
No.
So it's almost like there's this constant demon trying to break you down.
Yeah.
And if you are not strengthening yourself, well, then you have a tougher adversary standing across from you.
100%.
You have to learn how to become the person that is strong enough that when that voice or whatever it is tries to cripple you, go, not today, man.
Yeah.
Not today and not next week.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm on my game.
And you need a ton of self-awareness for it too.
Yep. And the more things you're doing to make you self-aware or make you feel great about you or your accomplishments or the trajectory of your life, whatever it is, that adds to that resiliency. That adds to that, like, no, look, in spite of you, in defiance of what my anxiety might have told me, I'm still doing what I want to do.
100%.
That strengthens you.
It definitely creates this cut your nose off, spite your face mentality, which I'm more like cut my head off type of guy. I don't know why, but someone's telling me or someone's doing something they shouldn't be doing, or, they're going to try and pull one over. I just have this mentality like, you might, but I'll make you pay. You're going to pay for it. It might not be as much as I am, but you're gonna, So it's tough. It never goes away. It just always kind of sticks at you, but you got to find different ways to get around it, or it's going to eat you alive.
But you are a really good success story for people that are going through the darkness right now. They have their own story and they're struggling, saying that, like, it does get better.
Yeah.
Like, it does get better. To be able to say on those words now, like, imagine if you could go back in time during your darkest moments as the Nick that sits here today, in shape, on top of the world, doing a lot of great things, surrounded by wonderful people, and saying, hey, it gets better, man. You have to get stronger. You don't even realize how strong you're going to have to get there.
Right.
But it gets better.
100%.
That's a big thing.
Time heals all wounds. I don't know if it heals them, but it definitely helps. And it does. And if you're growing with it and trying to better yourself, it does get easier. It takes time, but it does. It'll eventually be okay. So
let's start to talk about that chapter as you're coming out of a lot of those periods of your life. You found out you had cancer. You're going through all these different things. You got a weight loss journey. You're changing your life again. You're still living in California at this point?
When I was, So I finished chemo in 2008. I moved out in 2010.
Got it. So let's start to talk about that next chapter. Now you've gone through staring your own mortality in the face. You've gone through all these issues and problems that you did not expect, which a lot of the times those injustices or when things feel like, man, this is not fair, that's a lot of times where, like, victim mentality grabs a hold of you because it's like, why me?
Yeah.
But you kept going. You found a way to keep moving forward. When do you start to come out of it? And what was, like, I guess your first big break, or when you started to look around and go, like, you know what, my life is on track. Like, I'm kind of happy with the direction. These things are working out well. Start to talk the, like, building up stages.
So I found that with everything you're going through, the anxiety of different things that happen in the military, and there was a whole other group of stuff over there where you start to worry about everything. So there may or may not be opportunities that land in your lap where you're just like, ooh, no, because you're worried about everything that can go wrong. And there was, I'm trying to think of the guy's name, owns Virgin Atlantic.
Richard Branson.
Richard Branson. There's a Richard Branson quote, and I'll screw it up, but it's along the lines of somebody offers you something or a job that you have no idea how to do it, but you want to do it. Tell them you know how to do it, and then you figure it out. And that always kind of stuck with me. And I'm, taking positions that people would think I'd be really good at, or, trying to build up the confidence a little bit to say, okay, if they think I can do it, maybe I can. And that's just kind of how I did this for a long time. It's almost like fake it till you make it, right? And because me, I still think I'm a little kid. I still have that, wonder kind of mentality, kind of, hey, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So just trying to put yourself in these positions where, eventually something's gonna work out.
I can't tell you how many people I've interviewed that are ultra successful that experience what we call imposter syndrome
100%.
to the fullest. They always are thinking, do I deserve to be here? Should I be here? But man, like sometimes someone else's belief in you gets that little spark going in you where you question, you know what? Can I become that?
Right.
Could I do that? And if you can just ask that question and then pursue it, which is going to take some confidence, and it's going to take some dude, I might fall flat on my face.
Yep.
Right? So it's going to take some courage, but that can completely change your life because you are malleable as a human being. You can learn an incredibly diverse new skill set. But if you don't take the first step, that's not happening.
Right.
That's not happening.
100%. I think a lot of the most successful people in the world either had it one of two ways. Somebody beating down on them, telling them that they were nothing, and they said, screw it, I'm going after this out of spite of you. There's that. Or there's somebody who's, being told, listen, you'd be great at this, or believe in you more than you believe in yourself, to kind of give you the confidence to go on to that next step. It's the ones where everybody's kind of in the middle, where they don't have either or, that they don't. It's hard to kind of take that leap when you're surrounded by a bunch of people who don't do it either.
And that makes sense. You just dropped some amazing insight. There's so many people where they're stuck in this mid-range because the people that are being shit on by life and people, they almost get a little bit of this forget you. Yep. I'm going to show you. And let's say that's motivated by anger or frustration or whatever. Still motivation.
100%.
And if they go all in on something, they have the ability to accomplish it. The middle group is that wishy-washy unknown, so they don't really have the hard push.
Yeah.
And then the other side of the coin is the inspired group.
Right.
The you know what? I'm going to take a leap of faith here. I believe that if this person thinks I can do it, maybe I can do it. So whether you're inspired by the faith that someone has in you or self-belief or whatever it is, or anger, it's still better than that middle group that never chases what they want to become.
100%.
Because they're comfortable enough. They don't really want to fall down.
Right.
They're not being, trashed on by all these people where they're like, you know what, I'll show you.
Yeah.
And they don't have the right influence in their life that's pulling them up.
Right. And I was in that middle group for a long time.
That's a massive point. I always try to be the coach and the man in my life to pour this type of energy into people. They're like, I believe in you. You can be more than what you are. But man, even if you need to look at your life situations and say, look at all these people that don't think I'm shit.
Yeah.
I'm going to prove them wrong. No matter what, motivate yourself, whether
100%.
it's this way or that way.
And even if you take the first couple steps and you're trying to do something, regardless of what it is, and it fails miserably, you did more than they did anyways.
You're still taking the steps.
Right.
You actually will usually learn tremendous lessons from the first couple losses
100%.
that actually propel you to the next level. There's a woman that's building a business here in the community. I'm going to get on a tangent for just half a second. She's building a business that she's wanted to do for years. She has a tremendous amount of savings built up. She's gone to all these seminars, workshops. She has all the skills. And we were sitting down and talking about this. And I said, why have you not started this business?
Right.
And she's like, well, I just always feel like I just need a little bit more information. I just need this. I'm like, you just laid out for me. You've done 100 times more than what I would do if I wanted to pursue that. You need to take the first step. Why are you not taking the first step? And her words were those like, well, what if I fail on the first step? And I said, so what?
Right.
If you don't take that first step, you're going to be 50 years old looking back saying, I spent all this time and resource knowing that right in front of me, this was my dream.
Yeah.
But because if you take the first step and fail, guess what? You're going to learn from that. You're going to pick yourself back up. You're going to dust yourself off. You're going to be more qualified into your next endeavor because you will see where it went wrong.
Definitely.
And you will improve.
Absolutely.
Now she just officially did a first business presentation.
Nice.
She's launching the company. She's opening the LLC. But she had to get over that what if I fail? What if you never try?
Right.
If you never try, it's a guaranteed failure on your dream.
Absolutely.
So go for it.
Yeah.
Everything's a net positive, even if it's
Exactly.
just lessons.
Right. And
Or maybe connections. Maybe you meet
Yeah.
someone along the way that drastically changes your life.
Definitely. You have to take that step. And I completely get it, because I tend to overanalyze, and I need to make sure everything's got its spot and everything's good to go. And then it's like, okay, now I'm more comfortable, where other people are just like, this is what I'm doing now. And I'm going to learn every day. If you're not failing or not learning something new, and I'm not talking about like reading sales books I'm just talking about going out there, doing something, realizing that backfired, learning from that mistake, and then put it in your pocket and knowing not to do it again. Some of the wisest people in the world have made most of the mistakes, right? But really, failure is not the end of the finish line, right? It's just sometimes we stumble and fall. You quit, then you're a quitter. You fail over and over and over and over and over and over. Even if the whole plan never worked out, you know how much valuable information you just obtained?
100%.
It's incredible.
If you restructure in your mind, instead of thinking about like you fail, how about you're learning lessons and lessons and lessons and lessons and lessons
Yep.
that yields the success?
100%.
You got to change the dynamic in your brain of the way that you look at it.
Right.
You are gaining knowledge. You are gaining real world experience. You are gaining courage.
Yeah.
Even to be taken, you fall down and you have to get yourself back up. You learn a little bit of resiliency.
100%.
And you learn a little bit of, how to have a stronger character.
Yeah.
So all of those lessons are a net positive, even if they feel
Right.
negative. They feel like, oh man, I wanted it to work out this time. Guess what? It's a part of the journey.
Absolutely.
The reason most people don't chase the dream is they don't want the pain that comes with getting the dream.
Right.
They just want the dream.
Right.
You got to take the lessons along the way.
Exactly. You need to have a Rocky mentality.
100%.
Which, the greatest movies ever, but that's all it is.
It's why it's such a cultural inspiration, is because it is such a relatable story about setting out on a path despite the odds, going all in, suffering through the difficulty, and finding a way to be what you want to become.
Right.
So what were like the real, light at the end of the tunnel moments for you, where things started to come together? So now you've told a lot of the story that's struggle, that's difficult, that's dark. When did you start to be like, you know what, I kind of see an avenue here? And then like today, you manage a Hall of Fame Red Wings player. You have multiple different company ventures that you're in. How do you go from the Nick that we're at in this part of the story to these moments in your life?
It was something that kind of fell into my lap, and I had no business being the guy to do it, but it was there. I was at a golf outing for the Charlie Sanders Foundation. It was at Knollwood Country Club.
Why did you decide to go to that? Because
So my uncle wanted another guy, and he's best friends with one of the big members there. And he's like, hey, you want to play? I'm like, absolutely. This is going to be great time. So we got paired up with Darren McCarty, and we hit it off immediately. It was just he's one of these, and he's
a riot,
as
man.
real as it gets.
He's unique, straight to the point. You almost can't. You're gonna love him or hate him.
Yeah,
But he is who he is unapologetically.
absolutely. It will not change for anybody, and it's amazing.
The world needs more of that.
Definitely. So we had this really good relationship, and he was wearing some compression socks, and I worked for a medical supply company at the time. So I was like, dude, what you got on they're pretty bad. I was like, you mind if I get you some? He's like, that'd be great. So sent him some. I get a call maybe a week later. He goes, dude, I just got these in. These are great. What are you doing today? Do you want to go golfing? I'm like, yeah, I absolutely do. So we played golf 3 days a week, country clubs. It was awesome for like a whole summer. So at the end, he's going back to Florida, but we stay in touch. He comes back. He goes, listen, I'm probably gonna stay in Florida unless this this podcast that I'm doing. Sorry.
No problem.
This podcast that I'm doing, it's not being ran well. So he just needed some guidance. He goes, I need help getting some sponsors to help kind of pay for this. I'm like, sure. Made a few calls. Had a contract for him like by the end of the day on a smaller deal, and he's like, I need you to come in and talk to us, and I really want you to handle this. And I'm thinking, I'm not the guy. I'm not the guy. I'm a sales guy. I don't know a lot bit about this, but remembering that quote, I'm like, yep,
I'm going to be the guy.
I'm in.
I'm going to go for trying to be the guy.
Yeah, talk to my wife about it. I'm like, what do you think? She's like, do it. Absolutely. She's like, do you want to? I'm like, yeah, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. She goes, you'll figure it out. It's fine. So went and talked to him, saw that, the social media wasn't where it needed to be. The website, merchandise, none of that stuff was where it needed to be. So I kind of slowly, like, hey, if I'm going to bring sponsors here, we need to make this stuff look better. We gotta get our game together. So it went from me kind of getting sponsorships to taking all that over. With Darren, you meet new people, right? Of course. You meet new people, different opportunities come up, different things that we are excited about. We're huge. Darren loves the golf. I love the golf. So we were like, we need a charity outing. It's just an excuse to golf kind of thing. Well, during the time, a really good friend of the show, Dan O'Connor, passed away. And, Iraq twice, Purple Heart recipient, and he just didn't wake up. So we wanted to make it about him. Starting a golf an outing, no idea. I have no idea. Had no idea what to do, how to start it, but I did know what I like at a golf outing. I was like, I'm just going to do all that. Everything that I like and want to happen, I'm just going to do that stuff. So that was a little bit easier, and then that grew, largely and started Operation Valhalla, kind of in remembrance of Dan, and that's kind of blown up every year. Darren's huge into the cannabis community, and it's probably something he's most passionate about, if not more than hockey. Like he really contributes to his sobriety, means a lot to him. So we started another deal with the company to, essentially white label our products, and this is our flower over here. And it just keeps growing and growing, and all these opportunities keep coming, and each one it's like, I got to figure it out, But I learn lessons every day. Like, shouldn't have done that, or that would have been a lot easier if I'd have done it this way. But now I know. So collecting people and these opportunities, when they come to you, if you don't capitalize on them, somebody else is going to. Even if you screw up, learn from your mistake, don't make it again, and move on.
Take the shot.
Yeah, you have to. What's the Michael Jordan famous quote?
Absolutely.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take?
I love that commercial that he did where he's listing off all of his failures. Have you seen that Nike commercial where he's like, 32 times I was trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed, and
right.
I've missed over 900 shots in my career or whatever, and he's listing all the facts, and he's like, that is why I succeed.
It's 100% true.
That is a chilling commercial. Every kid should have to watch and almost have a think tank on that type of theory in life. Because if you can learn to embrace that type of mentality, you're going to go a lot farther. Like you said, the opportunity is going to go to someone.
Right.
People are going to collaborate together. Are you going to be a part of the conversation, or are you going to sit on the sidelines?
100%. When you I kind of look at it as baseball. So if you had 10 opportunities and you capitalized, let's say you failed 5 of them, or ideas you had, you failed 5 of them, 50%, You're batting 500.
Batting at 500, which is solid.
You're the
MLB greatest
hitter of all time. Like, that's what you got to kind of look at it as. And if you don't, then, you're not going to succeed every time. But if you don't take the shot or figure it out, it's not going to work.
Absolutely. And that is a skill you have to master, because as someone, like, I am kind of a perfectionist, and I'm someone that wants things to be great. And anytime they're not great, it infuriates me. Like, if I could have done better and didn't, it really bothers me.
Right.
And you have to learn how to realize that, like, what? Sometimes I'm not going to get the result I wanted.
Yeah.
But what can I learn from that? Where could I have done things differently if I had gone back?
100%.
And then as soon as I can close that chapter, okay, I should have done this, that, or the other thing.
Yeah.
Next time, I know what I'm going in with. It's almost like
Right.
I've strengthened my toolkit.
Right.
I know I don't use a screwdriver on this job. I use the hammer.
Exactly.
But you got to use the different tools to understand what works when.
Yes, and you got to figure it out. And I know you're a lot like I am, where I retain that knowledge, and then somebody else coming up has that kind of same idea, and you're supportive. Yes, do it. But here's what I screwed up. You should have done this, because if you don't, this is going to happen like it did to me, and it cost me X and all this.
You can at least give the word of caution.
Yeah.
Take it if you want, but what I learned through that experience was X, Y, and Z.
Right. Absolutely.
Which is what you're doing for your children, and they say, nah, Dad, you don't really know.
No,
I'm good.
Right. Yeah. Daddy, I have no idea what you're talking about.
So I know when Darren was in, that was one of the projects he was incredibly passionate about. It was like Darren McCarty Premium Cannabis or something was the name of the company. And it was he wanted to be like a national brand and bring the top level CBD and cannabis products for professional athlete use, for regular use. Kind of give me like the elevator pitch on why Darren McCarty Cannabis and what is separating him, other than obviously, everybody knows Darren McCarty.
Right.
He's a legend.
Yeah.
What is the vision of the company? What is kind of the outreach that you guys are going for, et cetera?
Absolutely. So it's a little tough with the, being legal in Michigan, not legal elsewhere. We have...
And hopefully that changes. I believe in the next 10 years, federally, it's straight across the board.
100%. And I agree as well. So the thing that separates Darren from really any celebrity that's out there is if you've ever had a conversation with him or seen him or talked to him, it's genuine. He'll sit there and he'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. He's engaging. He's always in front of the people, right? That's his thing. The people are the battery for him. He wants to be out there in front. You don't see that with celebrities. And I think that's what sets him apart from everything else. The other part is, as you said, he's unapologetically himself. So he had his demons. He went the cannabis route, and he was able to kick the habit. So he really does have that mentality of this is the greatest thing for me. Why I say for me is because let's say we got a product out. Hey, try this. You got this issue, whatever the case may be, and it doesn't work out. Come back to me. It's not like hey, I'll refund your money or try it's tell me what's going on. And my product might not be the best, but I've tried these other 5 and these are awesome. Try those. So he doesn't care about, it's the people first and then it's the product. But if his stuff doesn't work for somebody else, he's not pushing that.
That's the thing that stood out to me, and I'll say from my experience here with Darren is he was so unbelievably passionate about his products and so knowledgeable about them. Like he had them with him when he came in here in the studio and at the academy, and he was so unbelievably passionate about how it was produced, why it works, the knowledge behind it. He wasn't a celebrity slapping a name on something, because that's what I feel from most people, right? They get paid to use their name.
100%.
And so they get cut a check, and then people sell because of their name. Darren is 100% committed to the cause that he's a part of, and he's incredibly passionate about it.
Right.
That is a completely different level of engagement.
100%.
And that builds trust within other people, because you're like, this guy is not just saying, yeah, you can use Darren McCarty, cut me my check once a month.
Right.
He's like, this changed my life. This has been a massive medicinal product for me.
Yes.
This has improved the quality of a former professional athlete's life. They could have been a lot of suffering. They could have been pain medication, to the fullest and all these different prescriptions. No, this has been a cure for me. 100%. That's what really stood out to me about Darren.
Yeah, it's funny. You would think that his name is on the name and face is on the label, and he's going to want to be in the business meetings. Nope. He doesn't want anything to do with it. He wants to hang out with the scientist, helping create new things, new products, new this, new that. He's so embedded into that community that he knows everything going on. He knows what products would work. He knows what's not working. He wants to talk to the people, talk to the patients. He does so much charity work, especially for people going through, the alcohol withdrawals or having these issues, where he talks to them, personal phone calls. He's like there to help, truly help. And it's not going on social media. It's not going on the website to tell everybody about it, because then it's not really genuine. He's the most genuine, passionate about that than anybody I've seen, celebrity or not. He's all into it, and he's not going to come out with something that sucks. He's not going to come out with, like you said, we're just slapping a name on there to help push sales. That's not how he rolls.
So we got about 5 minutes left on the podcast. Yeah. I want you to give me the vision of what does the future look like? And you have multiple ventures that you're a part of. So I guess you can speak on a wide variety of, different topics, or you can dial in on one and say, okay, in the next 5 to 10 years, our goal is to really increase this or build this or launch whatever it is. But basically, let's encapsulate the whole story with, if we sat down and podcasted 5 years from now and things happen the way that you envision or the way that you want, and life's going to throw us all kind of randomness, but what does that look like? What is the big picture goal? What do you guys have in collaboration together that you feel comfortable unveiling?
Sure, absolutely. So the goal is for him to be able to be in front of the people still at all times, 100% into the cannabis business, where it allows him to be able to travel around. We're doing a mobile vehicle, kind of like an RV bus, something like that, kind of pimped out with a little studio so that he can still get his word out every day and communicate and talk, interact with fans while he's doing that, going from this comedy show to this dispensary. And he wants to go around and educate. We're working with the Hall of Fame Behavioral Health now, where he's on the board of advisors, he's on the panel, where he loves getting out there and just talking about the mental health. So the goal is for us to be able to focus 100% of our time on the cannabis, and then the grind time or what we're doing with Woodward Sports, to be able to he gets out to the people, but in a way that he wants to do it. So, as you know, right, there's a big difference between podcasting and radio. There's things you can't say, things you can't talk about. It's really hard to put Darren in a box like that and tell him, hey, do me a favor, don't talk about this one thing that changed your whole life and you're the most passionate about in the world.
He almost needs like a massive community outreach program at the forefront of his company and his vision, because he can connect with people on such a wide variety of ways, but he has to be able to be Darren.
Yes.
If you can only see a fragment of Darren, well, then you're not going to capture the passion that is Darren McCarty.
100%.
You know what I mean? And I know what you're saying. If you throw him on a certain news segment, he can only be a fraction of who he really is.
Yeah.
You get him out in an audience, you got to travel an RV, and you can get him around, and you can get people to see how all in that man is.
Yeah.
That's where people are going to remember Darren McCarty,
100%.
and they're going to see the difference that these products can make in
And
their life.
about so many different things, too. We never talk about hockey, ever. We just did had the 25th anniversary of Lemieux came out, and we had that. It was an awesome event, and ESPN came out and spent 4 days with us, and Unrivaled. Like, that's who he is. Like, he wants to be out there doing these things, but in a way that he does. So we never talk about hockey. We talk about golf, BS about whatever. Anybody, I don't care what you're into, you could have a long conversation with him because he just loves everything. He's into so much stuff. And hockey's just a small piece of that.
The man loves life. I was just on I was on Woodward Sports talking about Parisian's last fight with Neil and Darren. And my nephew is a huge Red Wings fan, big hockey fan. And anyway, I brought him on the camera for a second. And it was funny, Darren's reaction. He lit up. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Yeah.
Talk to him, engage with him. And you could just see how authentic and genuine and like Darren is who he is to the fullest, with no persona, with no
100%.
worry about a filter. He is Darren McCarty, D-Mac.
Yes.
From the day he was born till the day he dies, he's going to be that man. And if you can't respect somebody that's that genuine and authentic, man, it's your own compass that is off, not his.
I'm telling you, none of it's an act. The first time
No,
we
it's
ever
who
hung
he
out,
is.
I was getting so irritated after 10 people came up and mentioned the same story and the same thing over and over and over, and I'm just like,
how can this guy,
Dude,
after all these years, still be just as amped to talk to people?
Yeah.
It's because it's who he is.
Right.
It is not a facade.
100% true. He's just, and I asked him, like, dude, how do you deal with this? How are you not just sitting at home and avoiding everybody right now? Because I'm irritated, and I had nothing to do with me. He goes, you got to look at it like this. These people are coming up to me and reliving one of the greatest days of my life. Over and over. I was like, oh, that kind of sounds awesome. I was like, yeah, I get it now. Anybody ever talk to him, how he acts, how he reacts, that is 100% genuine. If he doesn't, here's the thing with Darren. If he's talking, which he loves it, he is in a good mood. When you guys are having a conversation and he stops talking, duck. You're going to get your face blown out. It's just how he is. It's just
it's authentic, man. It's who he is. I love that about him.
Agreed.
Like I said, I felt it within 15 minutes of being around the man. I was like, this is a great human. He is who he is, unapologetically.
Yes.
If we had more people like that, relationships would be deeper. We'd have better bonds with people because you know the human being.
Yeah.
So man, it was great to podcast with you
Absolutely.
today. I really enjoy this, and I'd love to actually have a conversation sometime. Maybe me, you, Darren, and a couple other members of the team about maybe bringing tons of the athletes in here use CBD products. I just let them order whatever CBD products they use
Sure.
online. We've had multiple companies reaching out to us trying really hard to get in here, like
Yeah.
Hinata. But anyway, just maybe 3-4 different companies that have been like, how do I get my products at the Michigan Institute of Athletics? Well, I'm somebody that likes to work on a relationship basis where I know somebody.
Right.
I believe in a part of the company or a founding member.
Yeah.
And that makes me want to support the brand. I cannot be disingenuous.
Right.
I cannot. Let's say I had a product that I could put up front, I could make a bunch of money off of, but I don't really believe in the people behind the company, or I don't believe in the message or whatever it is. I can't do it.
No.
I do not care about the profit. I'm like, nah, keep it.
Yeah. People first every time.
100%, because my community matters to me, and my legacy matters to me, and my impact matters to me.
Right.
But man, I've always had, great interactions with you, great interactions with Darren. I'd love to have a conversation about maybe we bring Darren McCarty Premium Cannabis into the Michigan Institute of Athletics and say, hey guys, all the people that are already using these products, instead of ordering online and not being able to have any connection to the company, why don't you use the products for the person that we could call up on the weekend and say, hey, Darren, we've got this going on, that going on. What do you think we should try? Now you have this like pipeline directly to people that are involved.
Completely agree. Yeah. People first always. Like you said, we've had a lot of interactions where business owners want us to do, hey, this product, we'll pay you this, but the guy's a complete asshole. Nope.
I won't do it either.
No.
And I appreciate people that keep that same type of energy.
Definitely.
Like I want to set up win-wins with people I believe in.
And I want to be able to work on a handshake and trust that person. And if I got to go through 40 pages of a contract, there's a good chance that it's just not happening.
It's funny you said that, because I'll wrap it up with this. For years, I've actually sought out different business mentors and stuff as I was growing this gym from my basement to where it is now. And countless times business people would always tell me, like, you're doing such a disservice to yourself by not having contracts, by not locking people down, by not making them sign non-competes. I have never in the history of this academy brought in any other person in any way other than shaking their hand and saying, you do what you say you're going to do, and I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do, and we're going to go on together.
Absolutely.
And people always push back on me with that. It was like, why would you do that? Here's why. I don't want to work with people that don't have my best interest in heart. I don't want to work with disingenuous people. I don't want to work with people that say they're going to do one thing and then they're going to do another. If you're going to not represent who you said you were going to be, then you need to go.
Yeah.
And no hard feelings. I'll shake your hand at the end as well and say, hey, we're going to go a different direction.
Yep.
But I've always operated business that way, and I've built, the largest mixed martial arts facility in Michigan.
This place
We have
is awesome, by the
tremendous success, and I never followed those rules because I said, if I can find genuine people, those people are going to go all in for each other, and we're going to be successful.
Definitely.
So, man, Nick Antonucci, a pleasure having you on the
Thanks for having me
podcast
on,
today, man.
It's great. I appreciate it. It's awesome.
Thank you very much.